Hi, I'm Leslie Messer with ABC News, here with Dr. Kristin Bendikson, a fertility specialist with USC Fertility. And we're going to talk a little bit about embryo freezing and egg freezing, especially in light of the two incidents in San Francisco and Cleveland. So thank you so much for doing this with us.
Welcome.
So this is where eggs and embryos are frozen, actually, right, at USC Fertility?
This is where they're stored. So
Okay.
these are our cryo storage tanks.
Okay, so should we, I know it takes some time to let them do what they do. So
Yes,
what should we?
so we first of all want to reassure our patients and all the patients that have undergone egg freezing and fertility that their eggs and their embryos are safe, and these two events are horribly tragic for those patients that are involved. But we believe that our eggs and embryos that are stored here are very, very safe, and so we really want to reassure people, and so that's why I'm really glad you guys are here today. So one of the things that we really want to show you takes a few minutes to actually settle down, as we should say. So I'm actually going to have to remove the lid of this storage tank, and then we'll go through about how this storage tank works. I think it can be extremely complicated, and I can kind of nail it down to something very much more simple so people can understand and have a better sense of how their eggs and embryos are stored. So I'm going to lift this storage cover off right now. I know. Here, we'll move this over here. All right.
And this is liquid nitrogen, right?
This is liquid nitrogen. So I'm going to turn this on. This is going to be a little loud for a second. So for a few minutes, we're going to have to talk over the noise. So it's going to be a little bit loud until this settles down. But I think that one of the most important aspects of all of this that people have to understand is how does this technology work? And it's different. Like right over here, we have a refrigerator and a freezer. And a freezer is very different. Plugged into electricity in the wall, and if you unplug it, it's going to warm up, and everything is going to warm up inside. And so if you have an ice cube, it's going to slowly melt as the temperature inside the freezer slowly rises. This is totally different. Totally different. So what we have here are storage tanks that are holding liquid nitrogen. These are massive and expensive thermoses. All right, so they work like a thermos. So what does a thermos do? If you put liquid inside of it, if it's really cold and you have a great thermos, that liquid is going to stay cold, right? If, however, you have hot liquid in it, it's going to stay hot. So it's meant and it's designed to keep the temperature of the fluid at the same temperature, all right? So liquid nitrogen, in order to stay at a liquid state, needs to be at under 196, so negative 196 degrees Celsius, so really cold, okay? And what happens is that if the temperature goes above that, then the liquid nitrogen starts boiling off, and it turns into a vapor, which is what we're seeing here. This is all liquid nitrogen vapor.
And I know that they haven't quite sorted out exactly what happened at these fertility clinics, but one thing that they are afraid may have been a culprit was low levels of liquid nitrogen. Is that right?
Correct, correct. But we don't understand exactly what happens, and they'll look into it, and obviously we'll find out more as time goes on. So this is the liquid nitrogen vapor, and you can touch it. It's cold, but not too cold. But what you have to understand is that these insulation tanks, here, let me put this down here. I don't need to hold on to that. These liquid nitrogen tanks keep this liquid really cold, and they're designed as best as they can. But there's no perfect system where the insulation is amazing so that it stays, all of the liquid stays at 196 degrees, okay? So we know and we anticipate that every single day, the top layer of the liquid nitrogen is going to boil off a little bit. So we lose a little bit of liquid nitrogen every single day, all right? So the level goes down a little bit every day. So in fact, we know, actually it's filling right now, but we know this monitor usually has a level on it that tells us what our average loss rate is every day, and it's 0.7, 0.8 inch, all right? So we lose less than an inch of liquid nitrogen every day. But that's how this tank is supposed to work, all right? So What we have in place is that we have this fancy monitoring system that's really high tech that not only tells us the temperature, we have two temperatures, a temperature at the top of the liquid nitrogen and a temperature at the bottom of the liquid nitrogen. All right, it also tells us what the level is. So it's 14.9 inches of liquid nitrogen, all right? And so then what happens is that this system knows, and we preset it, when it falls below a certain level, then you have this massive storage tank of liquid nitrogen here. It's going to automatically refill the liquid nitrogen, all right? And so that happens every couple of days, all right? And so that's actually kind of what's happening now. And that's why what this fill was, all right? And so what we do in order to keep the eggs and embryos safe, right, is we set that level at which it's automatically being filled much, much higher than where the eggs and the embryos are. So if you think about this tank, the eggs and the embryos are way down here. The liquid nitrogen level is about here.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're very protected.
They're very protected. So in fact, if we left the liquid, this storage tank, we left it with a cover off, and we left it for 2-3 days like this.
Right.
All right. Even from the point where it would be alarming us. All right, so not the point that it's at now. So we have it super filled right now, okay? But let's say it got down to the level where we have it set where an alarm goes off.
Which is important for people to know that
yes,
there is an alarm.
There is, yes. So an alarm goes off and it automatically refills. And so if it can't refill, then an alarm will go off. And at that point, it still would take 2 to 3 days with this open for it to get to the point where the liquid nitrogen, all right, would get to the point where the eggs and the embryos are, because they're very, very low. And so it's not, so if the temperature is rising, all right, it's not like it's water that's being warmed.
Right. Okay.
So I always think a good analogy is if you take a thermos, put water in it, and you put it outside in your backyard, and you let the sun kind of bake down on that thermos, the thermos is going to keep it cool for a while, but eventually that sun's going to evaporate the liquid, right, and warm it up. Well, this is a little different. If liquid nitrogen warms up, it's no longer liquid, it becomes that vapor, and so that's why you just have the level going down.
Got it.
Okay, but it takes such a long time for the level to go down, and the liquid is always cold. So as long as the eggs and the embryos are submerged in the liquid, they're okay.
Got it.
And we have these two different measurements are because there's monitors at the top of the liquid, at the bottom of the liquid. We also have here a separate monitoring system, so we have redundancy in our system.
Just to be extra safe.
Just to be extra safe. And so, for example, our staff is alerted by text messages at home.
wow.
Our lab director, we get a text message in the middle of the night if these temperatures are off or the level is off. So there's lots of different things that it would alert him right away. And we would be able to get in and rectify the situation.
Right, because you've already built in a system in which you would be alerted well before damage would be caused.
Correct, correct. And then the other thing is it's part of our system here at UC Fertility, and you can actually see looking down, there's liquid. These are eggs and embryos in here, and they're perfectly safe. Please understand they're perfectly safe with this cover being off. We actually also visually check this every day.
Okay.
One of our embryology staff members, and so they look at this and they can see that this level is okay. Obviously, we trust our systems, but we want to triple check.
Right.
And then the other thing that is actually important to understand is how we choose to store our eggs and embryos. And so you can kind of see these straws down here when the camera was closer, but this is what they're called canes, and this is what they look like. And inside each of these canes, this is where the eggs and the embryos are stored. Look at this. This is amazing. All right. They are stored at the tip of that 1 or 2 eggs or embryos. All right. And so once they're stored here, this gets slotted in here, and this goes down. All right. And then this goes into this system here. The eggs and the embryos at the very, very bottom.
Or the coldest part of the tank.
Well, it's liquid nitrogen, so it's all going to be cold, but it's going to be absolutely, even if you lost some liquid nitrogen, they're going to be safe.
Right. That's amazing that so many can be held in such a small space.
I know. These tanks, yeah, they hold thousands of eggs and embryos. I mean, it's really amazing.
How many eggs and embryos does the typical person have in one of these tanks if they were to come here for treatment?
I'm going to close this
By
up
all
a little bit. It really depends. I mean, I think that we have some patients that are going through an egg freezing cycle, and maybe they have cancer and they're older and they only can get 6 eggs in a cycle. And so they're going to have a smaller number, where if you have a younger patient that's coming in to freeze her eggs, then she's going to have many more eggs stored. So it's quite variable.
And it seems like the type of patient who would come here varies as well, too, in terms of age.
Absolutely. So we have patients that are here for egg freezing, either because they have cancer. I have patients that are egg freezing because they're young and they're working and they're busy and they haven't met the right guy yet, and so they want to do something to preserve their ability to become pregnant at some point down the road. I have young couples that are already together, so they found Mr. Right already, but they're still not ready to start a family, and they really want that together, and so they want to preserve that ability, so they're freezing eggs or embryos. And then we have our patients that have infertility, and so we see quite a wide gamut of patients here.
And people store their eggs and embryos, some for many, many years.
Correct. Yes. If you have cancer and you're 20 and we freeze your eggs, then maybe you're not ready to use them until your mid-30s, and so that could be 15 years.
And they would be held safe in like this for all that time. Wow.
Yes.
So can you walk us through a little bit of what the process of egg or embryo freezing looks like? I mean, it's a pretty short one, actually.
It can be. So the process of egg or embryo freezing starts with stimulation. And so with stimulation, what we're doing is we're giving the ovaries synthetic hormones that are going to make multiple eggs grow. Right? Okay. So each month in a woman's menstrual cycle, she actually has multiple eggs that are growing, and of those, one of them is actually going to be ovulating, and the other eggs in that group, they actually die, which is really sad, that we lose eggs as women every single month. And so what we do with egg freezing is that in addition to your own hormone that's making one egg grow, we're going to give you synthetic hormone that's going to make all of those eggs that are there that month grow. Wow. All right? And then we're going to take them out and freeze them for you. If you're going through IVF, you'll fertilize them. And a key thing to understand about that is that we're not going to make you infertile later if you're doing it for fertility preservation, because you would be losing all of those eggs that month anyway.
Got it.
All right. And the process for stimulation is short. It's about 7 days to 10 days of stimulation medication that you're taking that are making the eggs grow.
Got it.
Yeah.
So is this an expensive process for people?
It can be. I mean, I think we are very motivated here to make egg freezing accessible to people, and so the price is a little bit lower, but it is expensive. And so I think for a long time, patients were maybe a little bit reluctant to do egg freezing when maybe the technology was newer. And now I think people feel more comfortable with the technology because they've learned more about it, people are talking about it. I think in general people are so much more open about fertility issues and wanting to have children, which I think is a really wonderful thing. As women, we need a lot of support. Right. And so to be able to talk about those issues is really important.
Given how much more open people are today than maybe they even were 5 or 10 years ago, have you noticed an uptick of women and couples coming in for this type of treatment?
For egg freezing, yes. So egg freezing or embryo freezing for the future, yes. So I think I've seen a change in both the number of patients that are doing it and also the age of women. About 10 years ago, I think most of my patients that were egg freezing were probably between the ages of 38 and 40. They were older, maybe they were more established in their careers and they had more money, all right, to undergo the process. And it's useful to do this at 38 and 39, and we have patients that have gotten pregnant from their own eggs, even in their early 40s.
Wow.
Yeah, really amazing. But when you're older and you're going through egg freezing, you're not going to get potentially as many eggs, and the chance that one egg is frozen, the chance that it's going to become a pregnancy is a little bit less.
I see.
All right, so when you're younger, all right, you actually can get more eggs, and the chance that one egg could potentially become a pregnancy is higher.
I understand. And
Yeah.
as you mentioned, once it's done, they're frozen for as long as they need to be.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yes.
Is there anything I didn't ask you about this whole process that you feel like would be useful for our viewers to know?
Sure. I think in terms of understanding egg freezing, I think that understanding that the process has changed somewhat in the last 10 years in terms of the types of medications that we can give patients. I think that people used to think that they were on shots for 4 weeks in a row, and they would feel horrible and bloated for a couple of weeks after the egg retrieval and have to take time off of work. And the process really isn't like that. Most women can go through the egg freezing process and take very few days off of work, have it minimally impact their lives. They're going to have some side effects as part of the process. The more eggs that a woman has, the more side effects she has during the cycle itself. But it's very safe. And I think that many women are surprised at how easy it was to get them through the cycle itself. But people are afraid of the shots. I mean, you have to take shots for 9 days
To stimulate.
the eggs to grow. And so they're little shots that go under the skin, but no one wants to learn how to inject themselves with shots. But I think most people, they're like really proud of themselves after they get through a cycle, because they're like, oh, it wasn't so bad.
And then it's done unless you choose to do it again.
Unless you choose to do it again, then it's done.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for explaining all of this to us. This was really, really interesting, and I'm sure reassuring to people.
Yes, we really want patients to be reassured that their eggs and embryos are safe, and these incidents in the last couple weeks that have come to light are exceedingly rare, and we hope they don't happen again.
And it seems that there are plenty of safeguards to make sure that it doesn't.
We have many, many safeguards to make sure that this doesn't happen here, and many other IVF clinics are like that as well, obviously.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bendikson, and thank
You're welcome.
you so much for joining us. Again, it's Leslie Messer for ABC News, and we will see you soon.